If you draft these guys, don't say we didn't warn you. Unless you get a crazy discount on these names, avoid these players at all costs, no matter what the rankings say. Hello everybody, welcome into today's short form video. I am Ryan Wormeli, joined by Pat Fitzmaurice and Jake Ciely from The Athletic. We are talking players that we are avoiding at all costs. And guys, we have a lot of names to get through in a very short amount of time, so no preamble here at the top. We'll dive right in. Fitz, who is the first player that you're avoiding at all costs?
Baker Mayfield. Now, his ADP is QB7. That's also where I have him ranked, but it's the overall ranking I have more of an issue with. He is being drafted like around the late 6th, early 7th round. I'm just not taking Mayfield over some of the interesting running backs and wide receivers in that part of the draft. When I can wait another round or two and get Justin Fields, Brock Purdy, or wait even longer and get Drake May. Like there's going to be some statistical regression for Baker Mayfield this year. Like he had 41 touchdown passes last year after never before throwing even 30 touchdown passes in a single season. He ran for 378 yards last year, career high, never had even 200 rushing yards in any previous season. Mayfield is losing Liam Cohen as his play caller a year after losing Dave Canales as his play caller. And I know we like the Buccaneers wide receivers, but that's just, I don't think it's a justification for overpaying for Mayfield when there are better bargains to be had later on at quarterback.
Baker Mayfield, the only quarterback on this list of guys you put together here. Jake, who's the first player that you're avoiding?
Yeah, I'm going to say, again, I leaned into the never drafting kind of in my mind of like, is there a player that I would never draft? At running back, the player that might feel obvious to a lot of people, but I still see him going in drafts is Audric Estime. And that was even before they added J.K. Dobbins, just because I'm not a big fan of Estime. I just think he's a power, but kind of a meh power running back. And I think he would have been a fine complement to R.J. Harvey, but we needed to bank on touchdowns for him, and I just don't see a lot of upside. And now you add J.K. Dobbins, and the reason I bring up Dobbins with this is because even if Dobbins gets hurt, I still would be out on Estime. I just don't see the upside with him, especially in a Sean Payton offense. So I get the appeal is that, well, there's going to be scoring, and maybe if R.J. Harvey and Dobbins both get hurt, but we've already seen a scenario last year where he got his opportunities, and it was just kind of meh. Like, I think that's the best way to describe Audric Mestime. Like, there you go. Like, man, I hate to do that to him, and I know fans of his talent are going to come for me, but I think the talent's really just a question in my mind to begin with.
Fitz, who is your next player to avoid?
It's James Cook, who we just talked about on a running back draft or pass show. Cook's touchdown totals for the last 3 seasons, 3, 6, 18. So I think we know which one was the outlier. I think he's closer to 6 touchdowns than 18 this year. Josh Allen doesn't really throw to his running backs all that much. So Cook's reception ceiling is probably around 40, like his single season high is 38. And Cook's second year backup, Ray Davis, is a pretty good player. Like when Cook missed a Week 6 game against the Jets with turf toe last season, Ray Davis had 152 yards from scrimmage in a Bills win in that game. So he is a viable option behind Cook, and obviously Cook's current contract dispute is worrisome. But even if it's resolved, I think I'm still steering clear of James Cook because of the inevitable touchdown regression and the limited pass catching upside.
Jake, who's the next player you're avoiding?
Yeah, the one that might upset you a little bit, but I am completely 100% out on Zay Flowers, just where he's going. If he was a back-end wide receiver 3 at cost, sure, I'll buy in, because guess what? That's what he's been as a back-end wide receiver 3. And the reason I bring that up is because not only was he just wide receiver 34 in points per game last year, that came with Lamar Jackson throwing 41 touchdowns. How much more does Lamar Jackson have to do to get Zay Flowers even inside the top 30 to top 25? And people want to draft him as top 25. It's just they added Hopkins, and I'm not like afraid of Hopkins, but this is who the Ravens are. They use everybody. And Zay Flowers, as much as I love his talent, you put him on 20 other teams, and I will draft him as a top 25 wide receiver. He's never going to be a big touchdown guy for the Ravens, and you're just looking at somebody that's going to hover right around 10 and a half fantasy points per game, and that makes you a back-end wide receiver 3. So I get the excitement for the talent, but how many years we've been doing this? You know this more than anybody, Worm. We've been doing this for like 10 years trying to draft Ravens wide receivers. Just stop.
Yeah, everybody always, when they bring up a Ravens player that they're avoiding, they're like, I know you're not going to like this, Worm. I'm with you. I am not drafting Zay Flowers at his current cost. I don't get it. I love him.
That's telling, everybody
I love him
out
in
there.
real life, not in fantasy. Yeah, and that should be telling, honestly, for people. I will be having very little Zay Flowers this year unless the cost goes down. Fitz, next player you're avoiding.
This is going to make some people mad. Jauan Jennings. Pardon me for being a little bit skeptical of an age 27 breakout from a former 7th-round draft pick. A breakout that was at least partly aided by the absence of Ricky Pearsall early in the season, and then the absence of Brandon Ayuk after he tore his ACL. And it's not as if it was a massive breakout either. Like, Jauan Jennings was tied for wide receiver 26 in half-point PPR fantasy points per game. And, like, no question, Jennings was good last year. He averaged 2.26 yards per route run. That's an outstanding number, but Jennings had never averaged better than 1.38 yards per route run in any previous season. Like, not such an impressive number. And there's target competition from George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, Pearsall, and eventually Ayuk whenever he comes back. Jennings is an early 6th-round ADP, just way too early for me.
Jake, next player for you.
And I picked his name partly maybe because I wanted to go DeMario Douglas when I said that, just to be able to play that. But the truth is with Douglas, it comes down to what's the ceiling. Even if he was the number 1 target getter, and this is why I'm going this route with it, and Kyle Williams is a bust as a rookie. Hunter Henry doesn't bounce back, even though Hunter Henry had a pretty decent season at times with Drake May last year. And all the rest of the wide receivers, and he's the number 1 target getter. He's still going to need to catch 100 balls to get 1,000 yards. And then again, you're probably not going to have touchdowns similar to Zay Flowers. It really just comes down to he's their Wan'Dale Robinson. And Wan'Dale Robinson wasn't even a top 48 wide receiver on 140 targets last year. Like, it just, I don't see where we get the value from DeMario Douglas. And I think that he's fine in a full point PPR if you need a wide receiver 4 during Buy-Mageddon, but that's about it.
Fitz, next player.
Oh, another one that's going to make people mad. Josh Downs, who everyone seems to love. The Colts are likely to have mediocre quarterbacking this season. And any narrative, like talking up a player that involves, like, Daniel Jones winning the job, like, that's just inherently flawed in my estimation. So, like, even if it's Daniel Jones, no, I'm not going to be excited about Josh Downs, who, by the way, has scored 7 touchdowns in 31 career games. And, like, even if the Colts get better QB play than expected, like, we don't think rookie tight end Tyler Warren is going to become a problem for Josh Downs competing for those short area targets near the line of scrimmage. Like, I absolutely think Tyler Warren is going to put a dent in Josh Downs. And by the way, probably getting a bounce back season for Michael Pittman, who was playing with a freaking broken back last season. So I'm not at all in on Josh Downs.
Fitz, I was hoping you'd find a way to work in your own little accent. I don't know if it would be Mario or a different video game character. I'm disappointed that you didn't.
Sorry.
Jake, last player you're avoiding at all costs.
Colston Loveland. I think we've been spoiled the last 2 years with rookie tight ends, and the talent of Warren and Loveland are extremely appealing. I had them in a tier of their own this year in the draft, and I probably would have had them right behind Brock Bowers last year. But the fact is, where they ended up is not favorable situations, at least for this year. And watch a month from now, somebody's going to be watching this video, and they'll have traded Cole Kmet, and maybe the tune's a little bit different. But at least right now, as of today, this is also an offense that if it is going to be truly Ben Johnson, which I don't think it is, like, there's a lot of aspects to it, but like what I'm saying to say that about Ben Johnson is that he did use 2 tight ends a lot with the Lions. But you look at this roster and you're saying these 3 wide receivers, how do you use 2 tight ends? And then if it's Loveland all the time, even let's just say Cole Kmet is traded, he's still fighting to be 3rd in targets for this team. So it just comes down to, yeah, I'll be really interested in Colston Loveland in 2026, just not this season in 2025, and that's what it comes down to.
We got through those quick, so we have a couple extra minutes here. I want to ask you guys to pick one player that the other person presented just now as a player to avoid that you feel strongest about, either because you agree really emphatically or because you really disagree with the player that they pick. So, Fitz, you can go first. And as a reminder, Jake's picks were Audric Estime, Zay Flowers, DeMario Douglas, and Colston Loveland.
Yeah, the only, like, I don't know if I have any quibbles with it. I'm a little conflicted on Zay Flowers. Like, that's the only one I don't like vehemently agree with Jake on. I think maybe the one I most vehemently agree on is like, I just don't see any point in drafting Audric Estime. Like, I think there's a very good chance he's a healthy scratch in week 1 if he's still on the roster.
Jake, Fitz's picks here that you can choose from: Baker Mayfield, James Cook, Jauan Jennings, and Josh Downs.
So it's like progressively, I got like more and more pain as he was branching. Like, so Baker Mayfield, I'm just not drafting quarterbacks there. James Cook, we had that conversation on that show. Jennings was in my breakout column, although I will say for Fitz's argument is that I mentioned in that column that Jennings is the Ayuk replacement. Pearsall, what he brings, I think starts alongside Jennings. But if Ayuk returns to even 90% Ayuk, I think Jennings loses the job and Pearsall stays out there because I think he's a better complement. He's not Deebo Samuel, but he replaces that role better, in my opinion. So I do think you can see Jennings and Pearsall both as breakouts. Well, one being, the fact for coming off that shot injury that you were talking about. If Ayuk never played, I think they could both break out this year. But the one that paid me the most is Josh Downs. And here's where I'll go with it. By the way, more fantasy points per game than Zay Flowers last year. Just to say, like, I agree with you, Fitz. Do not try to talk to me about Daniel Jones improving the situation. But the truth of what I said and why he was in the breakout column, because Josh Downs' ability, his style, I think works whether it is Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones at quarterback. Daniel Jones will hit him in the short to intermediate. Anthony Richardson could hit him on those big plays out of the slot, but also hit some over the middle. I just think Downs works well in both situations. I only have him as a back-end top 40 wide receiver, so I actually do like him a pretty good amount. But if this comes into what you're talking about, Fitz, all of a sudden it's like Downs, every show, everywhere you watch, and all of a sudden he's being drafted as like wide receiver 38, then I would be out on it.
If you want to steer clear of every guy we mentioned today, you can tag them as players to avoid in our Cheat Sheet Creator. The Cheat Sheet Creator is your personal guide to perfect league-specific rankings. Visualize your path to victory as you add tiers and tag your busts, breakouts, or sleepers. Sync your league to craft custom rankings, ensuring every pick is strategic and tailored to your league settings. Sync your league and enter your draft with confidence using the Cheat Sheet Creator at fantasypros.com/sheet or on the Fantasy Football Draft Wizard app. For Jake and Fitz, I'm Ryan Wormeli. Thanks for tuning in to our Players to Avoid. We'll see you next time.